Brown, is that you? Hi, Uncle Martin. Uncle Martin? Uncle Martin, did you know that you're invisible?
Tim, if I weren't by nature a kindly and gentle Martian, I'd also make Mrs. Brown disappear. Permanently.
I saw her downstairs just now. She was acting sort of funny.
Mm-hmm. How could you tell?
Well, I mean, even for her. When I drove in, she was sneaking around the corner of the garage, well, as though she'd been up to something.
Mm-hmm. She had. I read her mind. She was doing her homework.
Homework? Oh, now, don't tell me she's on another one of her self-improvement kicks.
I was in complete agreement when she went in for yoga, skin diving, even adagio dancing. But a private eye?
Mrs. Brown? A detective?
Mm-hmm. She's taking a correspondence course.
Now I've heard everything.
Oh, no, you haven't. Her first assignment is to prepare a complete dossier on the private life of some unsuspecting subject. And guess who the unsuspecting subject is? Mrs. Sherlock Holmes is getting an early start. I don't know why I even try to read that woman's mind. Every time I do, I get a headache. Tim, I have a very uneasy feeling. Like this planet is about to be shaken off its axis, or something equally unpleasant.
Uncle Martin, look, if you're worried about Mrs. Brown, just forget it. Now, what can she do? You have a new lock on your garage door, and the spaceship is safely locked up inside. She'll never find it. Now, even if she finds your manuscript, it reads like science fiction. So that's no help. And the only other thing would be your flight log on your trip from Mars. And that is under lock and key.
I'd feel better if Mrs. Brown were, too.
heard of aftershave talcum, but isn't this a little silly?
Mrs. Brown has been dusting for fingerprints.
On your face?
In your bedroom. She's been snooping.
You mean that she's been in here playing detective while we were out?
I mean exactly that.
Well, she can't do that. She just can't go nosing around. We pay our rent. I'm gonna go downstairs and tell her to stay out.
First, you'll have to tell her to get out. She's hiding in the clothes closet.
Oh, now, come on, Mrs. Brown. It's in the middle of the afternoon. You can't be sleepwalking.
Pleasant dreams.
Thank you.
Uncle Martin, I was just thinking, even if Mrs. Brown did discover something, she wouldn't know it.
Let me remind you that X-rays and penicillin were discovered by accident, and now the whole world knows about it.
But look, you're always saying that you want to get back to Mars. Now, maybe if they found out that you didn't have a passport, they'd deport you.
No, thank you. I wouldn't care to be shot home in one of your Earth rockets. They're too primitive. Not much better than one of your covered wagons.
Well, at least you wouldn't have to face the hostile Indians.
No, Mrs. Brown.
Something wrong? Uncle Martin, what is it? What's the matter?
How could I have been so stupid? How could I have been so asininely, incredibly, and completely stupid?
Well, you don't think Mrs. Brown discovered your Martian flight log?
I know she found it. The drawer was unlocked. I had it lying in there upside down. I always do. I underestimated her. That's what I did. Me and my super Martian intellect. I underestimated her.
That's not easy to do.
Well, I did it. When I found her here taking fingerprints, I assumed that's all she was doing.
Well, so what if she did find it? She wouldn't understand it. The whole thing is written in Martian.
Tim, an amateur sleuth is infinitely more dangerous than a professional. Alexander Graham Bell would never have invented the telephone if he had been an expert electrician. He would have known it was impossible. There are times when ignorance is an ally.
Well, do you think she knows enough to suspect anything?
I don't know what she knows, but somehow I've got to find out.
Well, that would be very, very simple for you. Why don't you just go downstairs and read her mind?
You have no idea how much I've been trying to avoid that. Do you know how painful that would be?
Do you have a better idea?
No, but I just have to be brave.
Better, Uncle Martin? Can I get you a headache pill or something?
Oh, Tim, the only pills that will touch a headache like this are on Mars. It isn't too bad reading her mind in short bursts. It's these sustained attacks that decimate the brain.
I've never seen you like this before.
I've never been third degreed by Mrs. Brown before.
Third degree?
She was like a bulldog. I've never seen anything like it. I was ready to confess. Confess, confess. I tell you anything. I did it. I did it.
Couldn't you read her mind at all?
Tim, out of that welter of confusion that lady calls a mind, I managed to extract a few unhappy facts.
Such as?
Such as she has a very small camera commonly used in espionage work. She found the flight log and she took pictures of it.
Well, I don't think that's too serious. The only person that could read it would be a Martian.
Tim, these are suspicious times, Tim. If Mrs. Brown's school can't break down the log, they'll send it on to expert cryptographers. From there, it could very well end up in the hands of government code specialists. And the next thing we know, I'll be under investigation as a suspected foreign agent.
Uncle Martin, do you remember what I told you about not worrying?
Yes?
Forget it.
Okay.
Oh, Martin, wait a minute. Oh, say, would you stop by the store and pick up a pie for me?
I'll be glad to. What kind?
Oh, any kind, except apple, peach, strawberry, pecan, apricot, lemon, blueberry, or rhubarb.
Mrs. Brown, what's left?
Chocolate cream.
I should have known.
Naturally. Thanks a lot.
You're entirely welcome.
What's that?
That, my boy, is a receipt for a roll of film which Mrs. Brown left at Murphy's drugstore. Tim, would you say that I was moderately intelligent?
Well, of course.
Wouldn't you say that I was smarter than Mrs. Brown?
Uncle Martin, practically anybody is smarter than Mrs. Brown.
Then how do you explain this?
Out of focus. That's Mrs. Brown for you. Well, these aren't the pictures she took yesterday. These are the pictures she took 2 months ago.
Take me home.
Uncle Martin, you don't suppose that your thought waves got mixed up and Mrs. Brown read your mind?
At this point, even that wouldn't surprise me.
Glad I got back before you did.
Here's your pie.
Oh, thank you, Martin. I'll bet you don't know what I'm going to do with this.
Oh, yes. Well, it seems the long way around, but you're going to make a pudding out of it.
Yes. I must admit, Martin, that was a good guess.
No guess. That was extrasensory perception working.
Oh, I don't believe in that.
All right. You think of a secret, and I'll try to read your mind.
Well, all right.
All right, now concentrate. Concentrate good and hard. I've got it. You're going on a diet.
That isn't it.
No? Well, I would have sworn.
Well, you were wrong. It was something else entirely. You think I should go on a diet?
Certainly not. I was going to protest the idea in the same breath.
Did you read her...
Loud and clear. She mailed the undeveloped film to the correspondence school.
Well, that's that.
No, it isn't. I'll be right there with the morning mail.
Morning mail, Mr. Pierce.
You handle that mail like it was marked fragile.
Sorry, sir. I'll put them all back.
Now, see that you do.
Yes, sir. Just as soon as I finish delivering the mail to the rest of the tenants.
Oh, no. No. Out. Oh, no. What if I can't disappear? Do it. There, that's better. They'll be all right now. I wonder if this still works.
Well, good morning, friend. Can I be of service? I'm J. Nathaniel Pierce.
Oh, how do you do, Mr. Pierce? I was thinking of taking one of your correspondence courses.
Well, splendid, friend. Splendid. A very wise decision. Now, just which career opportunity do you have in mind? Business administration? Law? Plumbing?
No, I thought I might be interested in your private detective course.
Very, very wise choice. Oh, yes, there's a great demand for private detectives these days, you know. And it's very pleasant work, very pleasant. It keeps you out in the open air. It takes you to exotic places. Hawaii, Miami Beach, Sunset Strip. Very enjoyable work. Why don't we just step right into my private office here where I can give you some of my personal attention. Yes, I just happen to have a few moments of free time right now.
I wanted to find out a little bit about how you operate before I decided anything, Mr. Pierce. For example, would I send my lessons directly to this office?
Oh, yes, yes. We don't believe in spreading ourselves too thin around here. Yes, why don't you sit down?
Oh, yes, well, a friend of mine was telling me something about a small camera that's being used by private investigators.
Now, you're jumping way ahead of yourself, friend. We don't get to that till the third lesson. There's sign right there.
A contract?
First thing first, just sign right here. Don't bother reading the fine print.
Well, it's all fine print.
Say, you are the keen one, aren't you, friend? First thing we teach in our private investigation course is be observant. There we go.
Well, no, Mr. Pierce, I don't want to sign anything quite yet until I find out some information, please.
I know what you're going to say, friend. You're going to say, how much, right?
No, that was not what I was going to say.
Of course you are. And have I got good news for you. This course is positively and absolutely unequivocally free. There is positively no charge. Now, you may wonder how we can afford to do that. Volume, my friend. Strictly on a volume basis. See, we don't charge you 1 red cent for the lessons. However, we do make a small profit on the accoutrements necessary for the trade. Like this genuine little persuader here. And we make it as painless as possible, too. See, every good private investigator needs good equipment. And we sell that equipment to you practically at cost. 1 piece at a time with each lesson.
Mr. Pierce, you remind me of a very good friend of mine, Mrs.
I'd love to meet her sometime. I'm sure she's a charming woman if she's a friend of yours. Now, let's see, where was I? Oh, yes. Now, with lesson number 1, you'll need this high-power magnifying glass that helps you to examine personal correspondence and other clues concerning your subject. Now, also, you'll need a set of these genuine, finest steel handcuffs in case you need to restrain your subject. Yeah.
This friend of mine told me about mailing in some film to be developed.
Oh, yes, that's right. Now, with lesson number 8, you get this handy little item. Knockout drops. They're perfectly harmless and never going to waste. In case you have a little trouble sleeping, you can always use them on yourself.
Mr. Pierce, I hate to monopolize the conversation, but I would like to know what happens to this film after it gets here.
Well, I really couldn't say offhand, friend. I usually leave those little details to my secretary so I can devote all my time to the client. However, the rates are very reasonable. You see, we're always on the lookout for the best deal we can get so we can pass the benefits on to you.
Do you have any idea what time your secretary will be in?
Oh, she ought to be along any... Say, are you a cop? Because if you are, let me tell you something right now. No matter how many times we've been investigated, nobody has ever been able to prove a thing.
I'm no policeman, I assure you.
Come on.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Pierce. I forgot to ask before. That Mrs. Brown, she did it again. Forgot the postage. You want to pay for it or send it back?
Send it back.
Yes, sir.
Now, let me show you our assortment of disguises here, friends. We have some of the finest.
Thank you, friend. Good as new.
Well, that about wraps it up. You got the film back? You can disappear again? What else is there?
Mrs. Brown.
You think she'll still be a pest?
I was thinking more about Mrs. Brown as a person, as an individual. Most people have two major preoccupations in life, Tim. Family and economic survival. Even if you have family problems, you've still got love. And even if you're out of a job, you still have hope. Mrs. Brown has no family, and she doesn't have to worry about her income. Tim, she must be very lonely. And loneliness can be a very bitter thing. And maybe no one has ever told her that the only way to combat it is by being useful, making yourself needed, finding worthwhile things to occupy your time. The world is full of jobs that can be done only by people who have nothing to give but their time. And another thing, Mrs. Brown, don't you realize that what you're doing could be very dangerous?
Dangerous?
Certainly. Private investigation is a very serious business. These people are highly trained specialists, and sometimes they have to play rough.
Well, I must admit, Martin, everything you've said makes a lot of sense.
You're an attractive, gentle woman, Mrs. Brown. Can you imagine yourself surrounded by half a dozen muscular brutes and trying to fight your way out?
Oh, yoo-hoo!
Well, it looks like Mrs. Brown is her sweet self again, thanks to you.
It was really quite simple. Merely a matter of explaining things to her in terms she could appreciate.
Oh, Martin! Would you come here a minute, please? I want to thank you for that little talk we had the other night. I've been thinking it over very carefully, and you were right. Detective work could be dangerous.
Oh, very dangerous.
That's why I started taking judo lessons.